According to Kipsigi's culture, women, they do not have a clan of their own. Therefore, they cannot inherit land because they do not have a clan. They would earn that privilege of inheriting land once they get married. Doing so means that they belong to a clan. Six sisters, right? In Kericho, they were fighting with two brothers to inherit a piece of land, 42 acres, so that they can inherit it equally. One of the women said that her father gave her some piece of land where she could build a house and she could raise her children. But the brothers, they waited until the father was ill, and then when he died, then things started changing. And the woman could not even upgrade her house, which she had built in 1984. So it was falling apart, and the brothers would not allow her to build a house. But she went to the Kericho law courts, right? And she got a judgment. And the judgment was in her favor and in the favor of the other sisters, that they were to divide the property equally. Isn't that a good thing? Married women to inherit their parents' property. Is that wise? Let's look at a case study. And who... Welcome to Nahashon Kimemia Live. Subscribers, 775. Just 25 subscribers shy of 800 subscribers. Thank you so much for subscribing. Again, the sweaters are 500. Share these videos with your friends. So who are we talking about when it comes to this case study? We are talking about Mr. Ibrahim Watuta Mbashi. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly. He had his first wife. Her name was Ruth Nyawira. And the second wife, her name is Mary Wangoi. And as you can tell, he was a polygamous man because he had 2 children. And I thought that this might be an opportunity just to delve in a bit on polygamy, right? There was a study that I found at the Department of Psychology all the way from Lahore, Pakistan. It was the Government College University. Pakistan is just borders India. They took a sample of 6 participants, 3 men, 3 women. Gender equality, right? And they asked them a bit of semi-structured questions. And the findings were carried out in the Pakistan Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology. And these are the findings. That the children of people who grew up in a polygamous setting, right? They suffer from the disintegration of the family unit. Seeing the family unit disintegrate, slowly but surely. They suffer from a sense of deprivation and economic, social, and educational constraints. I think more so in Africa, in Kenya this time, economic constraints would be a real key factor when it comes to polygamous unions. They also suffered from an adverse impact, right, on interpersonal relationships, like how they relate to other people. And they usually find themselves in discord with many people. Even when it comes to their romantic lives, they find it hard to connect to other people and to form unions. That's what I got from this study, right, that was carried in the Pakistan Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology. I just wanted to mention that. When it comes to polygamy, again, look at the parents. And this one, I'll go to the Holy Book. Remember Sarah, the wife of Abraham, formerly known as Sarai. And you remember Hagar, the Egyptian slave maiden, right? And Abraham also had some concubines on the side and everything, right? When Sarah saw Ishmael playing with Isaac, what did she do? She didn't like it. And she told Abraham, drive that slave girl away. And I don't know, for those who have been in polygamous settings as they were growing up, right? Was there that kind of, let's say, that kind of hatred between wives? That kind of jealousy? That kind of irritability when they see their children playing with other kids, or when they see other households succeeding other than them? That is what I got from Sarah and Hagar. And I also got something else from Rachel, Leah, and Jacob, right? Jacob loved Rachel, not Leah. And even the Lord saw that. And what did he do? He opened the womb of Leah before Rachel. Actually, at a certain time, even Rachel had to say, "Give me a child or I will die." There was great animosity and jealousy between Rachel and Leah. And these are the examples that I've seen in all the ones that I know, right? The polygamous unions within the Bible. A lot of elements of jealousy, a lot of discord. And it leads to a lot of chaos. And then that would lend credence or support to the idea that the children themselves, they are affected by what happens to the parents, right? So these settings, anyway, how do they affect like other marriages? Did you know, like 1999 census, there were 19 million men and 19 million women, but the women were slightly more than the men, 225,000. The ratio was 1:1. So when you have a polygamous setting where one man is having many women and the ratio is 1:1, what happens to the men when one man takes more women than he should, because the ratio is 1:1? How will they deal with what they need to deal with? Let's say their sexual urges and their need to have a family. And then what would make the women move towards one man? Most likely it's money. And that's how it will be. We'll encourage a society that looks at certain things instead of looking at the man. Because if she was looking at the man, then that man belongs to that woman. So let me find my own. But if it's about the money, I will stick there. And one other man will lack. So what will he do when he lacks? Disintegration of the family unit. So let's go back to Ibrahim's story, back to the case study. So Ibrahim had 12 children. People are usually asking, how many children does Kalwale have? Personally, I don't know, but they seem to be a lot. Ibrahim had 12, 7 sons, 5 daughters. I think that's a good figure. 7 is also the number of God. 5 is also a number of God. Other numbers are 3, 9, 40. But we'll talk about this on another day. So people prefer sons more than they prefer daughters. Because even this case that I'm talking about, it's a case where the married women have to fight for inheritance. So why do people prefer sons more than they prefer daughters? Because sons provide present day protection. They have, actually it's just physically, right? When somebody comes to steal, the son would be able to protect the home, not the daughter. And that's why when it comes to men, they're usually very particular. Most of them want a son as the first child so that they can have some help when it comes to protecting and building the family. It's nothing personal against the daughters, right? It's the reality of life. Then protection for the family after you are gone. What happens when you die? Because if a father has a son, what he'll tell the son? As if he feels that he's going to die, or even as he trains the son to become older, that I'm leaving you to take care of the home. And many fathers say that. And that's the way it is. It is reality. Again, it's born from the physical nature of men and the physical nature of women. Sons can raid and build wealth. That's traditionally one of the reasons why they were preferred. They could actually go out there and, like the Vikings, right? Why would they prefer sons over daughters? Because they could go and raid. And that's why it was very important for somebody to have a son. Okay, there is raid and then there is build wealth. Because most of the wealth in the world is patriarchy. It's a patriarchy society that we live in. And the wealth is concentrated within men. And it's easier for a man to build wealth than it is for a woman. Again, a sad reality, but still a reality. Sons can rule after you're gone. It's difficult for women to do so. The English crown, they have tried. Elizabeth has done really well. But it wasn't always that like that from back in the day. By 1518, Catherine of Aragon, she had been married to Henry VIII for 9 years. During those 9 years, she had experienced 6 pregnancies. But she only had one healthy child out of those 6 pregnancies. It must have been devastating for her when it came to the others that weren't successful. And she must have been happy when she got a daughter. But the king wasn't. And the subjects of the king weren't happy because it was a child. The king wanted a son. Because only sons could rule in England at that time, or would have enough respect to rule. And that's one of the reasons why King Henry VIII was very particular about divorcing Catherine of Aragon. One of the reasons. So anyway, let's go to child infanticide, right? It's another proof that society usually prefers sons to daughters. Baby girls in China, they were killed. I think you already know the story. They killed so many babies. Millions of babies. Girls. And back in the day, drowning was the most common method of killing baby girls. Another one was starvation and suffocation. They would also leave a child exposed to the elements. Wind, water, earth and fire. Whatever befell them was their own. The child would be placed in a basket and then placed in a tree and then left there to die. In China, one of the reasons why they preferred girls, the many reasons they preferred boys, was that the sons would carry on the family name. That agricultural work and manual labor was mostly performed by the sons. The sons would provide support and security to their aging parents. But what would a daughter do? A daughter would leave her home and she would go to the home of her husband and she would care for her husband's family. China is a very unequal society. For those who don't know, socialism, that's what it does. It increases inequality. And when guys are very poor, they really want whatever they're building on, whatever they're investing in, to stay there. So they'll kill their daughters because their daughters will go away to another place. There's a phrase that they used, investing in a lost cause or something, when it came to daughters. It's sad, but again, we deal in reality. So back to the topic for today. Ibrahim had 2 wives, Ruth and Mary. The first wife, Ruth, she died in 1987. That's when I was born. So she died. And only 2 people are left, Ibrahim and Mary. And remember, Ibrahim was survived, had 12 sons, had 12 children, 7 sons and 5 daughters. Now Ruth had 5 daughters with Ibrahim. She was the one with the 5 daughters. But 5 daughters, one of them died. So she only remained with 4 daughters. That's Ruth. Let's go to the other part. I wanted to talk about just a bit, right, about living with step-parents. How difficult it is. Because now Ruth is dead, right? So Mary is now a step-parent to their surviving kids, including Mary's 4 kids. I'm thinking by this time they were a bit big. But I just want to take this as an opportunity to talk about step-parents, right? Not specifically this story. When people live with step-parents, for those who know, their personal struggles. And they often ask themselves if they were kids when their parents died, or even when they're adults. Why did my parent die? Why did they live if they did not die but went away? Perhaps disappeared on them. They often ask themselves, Who am I? What do I say when people ask me about my parents? So these are the things that step-parents need to be talking to their kids about. Some step-parents do that, and that's a good thing, because they help their step-kids to form an identity, to overcome their insecurities, and to be functional in society. Some step-parents do that, but others, they do other things. Others, they physically and verbally abuse those kids. And many people speak about that. I can't raise a child that's not my own. I will be harsh to them. They give their kids excessive work. Like if all the kids are supposed to be doing something, that kid is doing more than the rest. And they don't feel as though they are hurting those kids, because they are not their kids. They are not their own. Those kids also experience reduced rations of food and clothing. Can you imagine guys coming to the home, right? And then everybody's being given stuff, but there's one kid who does not have that stuff. Isn't that a sad reality? How many kids do you see on the streets of Nairobi? How many of them do you talk to? How many of them can tell you such stories? Siku moja aliishi na mama wa kambo. Babake alikufa. What happens after that? Isolation. These kids experience a lot of isolation. One example, right? Everybody can be at the dinner table eating as a family. But there's one kid eating with the maid in the kitchen. Step kids go through a lot. And if you find one, be kind to them, because they will remember that kindness, especially when they don't experience kindness at home. So anyway, back to the Ibrahim story. What happens next? Ibrahim dies. So Ruth is dead, and now Ibrahim, he dies. He's dead. And he does so without writing a will. And he leaves some properties behind. One of the 3 properties are of major concern. There's one called Tengenge Kihoro 69. I think it's a plot number. There's another one, Surugoi Block 7, 377. And then there's another one, North Tetu Farmers Circle plot number 0063. So he leaves these properties behind. And he does so without leaving a will. There is an importance of leaving a will. If you don't do that, then there is disorder. Chaos can erupt, and it can erupt quickly. Fights over those properties, they can become a reality. And those fires are very hard to put down. Because now, remember, the lady, the keepsakes, right? As soon as the father died, the 2 brothers started acting up against the 6 sisters. They always wait for an opportunity. And that is why living a system of order is important. How you finish the race is just as important as how you ran the race throughout your life. So remember a will. A will is also important because it increases efficiency. For example, you can allocate resources based on the talents of the people you leave behind. And there are so many examples of such instances. When Julius Caesar died, right, he did not leave his estate to Mark Antony, his most trusted confidant, his most loyal soldier, the person who had once ruled Rome while Caesar was handling a rebellion in Egypt and bringing Cleopatra to power. Yes. What he did is that he left it to Octavian. And when his will was being read, everybody was surprised. And more so, Mark Antony. Because he felt that Caesar would leave it to him. But Caesar remembered that when he left Rome to Mark Antony, Mark Antony did not do well, and he remembered that Octavian was one of the wisest and most shrewd politicians at the day, even though he was young. A will is very important. Even our emperor of Rome, a dictator for life, left a will. There are limited cases of unfairness when you leave a will, because now the person who is arguing must argue against the dead and the written records of the dead. And that is very difficult to do, because again with the Kipsigi's case, that 42 acres would have been divided very, very well. 6, yes. But when it came to the brothers, they took advantage, right? And so the courts had to intervene. Limited cases of unfairness when you leave a will. I'm not sure if the father in the Kipsigi's case left a will, but I don't think he did, because in the report that I saw, I didn't hear mention of a will. So anyway, back to the story. What did Mary want? She wanted to to oversee that land and to distribute it as she saw fit. And when Ruth died and Ibrahim died, she was the one left in charge of that property as the surviving wife. So she decided to distribute. Mary took control of the estate and she distributed the land to the sons as per customary law. I think this is a Kikuyu culture, where married women, they do not inherit land. What is the wisdom in this customary law? Again, yes, we might disagree with our traditions today, but traditions came about for a given purpose, for a given reason. Some of those reasons might have been misogynic, yes, chauvinistic. Some of them might have been the result of wisdom. Let me give you an example. In this case, the responsibility, the community places a responsibility upon the husband to take care of himself, to take care of his wife, and to take care of his children. If that does not happen, then the society has a problem with him. Even if his wife misuses the property, the society will come after him and say, why can't you control your wife? He is given a responsibility. Is he given tools to exercise that responsibility? Imagine going to work, given a responsibility to bring a certain client or to handle a particular account, but you're not given the tools to do that. What would happen to you? The man needs help because it is all on him. He needs the tool to effectuate his responsibility. And inheritance, based on the olden days, was the best way of helping him. Again, remember the clan. Because one of the arguments that I had, right, was that when that they wanted the wealth to remain within the clan. But if they give the woman wealth and she goes to her husband, then that wealth transfers to that clan. So that's another thing that we might need to consider. Why they did that back in the day. It wasn't out of folly. It wasn't something chauvinistic. It was simply a reality of the time. That the responsibility was upon the man. And they were giving him tools to exercise his responsibility. And they wanted to maintain the wealth within the clan. For those who have done economics, there's something back in the day, I think it was 9 principles of what, I can't remember, perhaps mercantilism. What they did was that they formed a specific economic policy, right, to maintain as much gold and as much silver and all those valuable coins, wealth within Europe, and to make sure as little of it as possible goes out of Europe. Bring it in, do not take it out. And that's part of the reasons why they built their country so well. Right now, I think it's Britain, the Bank of England, it has refused to release the gold that it holds for Venezuela, right? And it holds a lot of gold for many other countries. Why not South Africa, where the gold actually comes from? Because guys have figured out that they need to retain wealth. And clans were trying to retain wealth within themselves. It is not a bad thing. It is a reality of life. So what about the women? Were these guys misogynistic, right? Did they not care about the women? Well, in traditional society, they figured that the women were already taken care of. How? Wherever they are going to, there is also a man who is inheriting in that area. And that's one of the ways she will not find a vacuum when she goes there. And assuming that there is a vacuum, the responsibility is not upon her to fill that vacuum. It's upon that man. And he must play his part. Because society will ask him, it will not ask her. And if she comes back home, the failure will be on him and not on her. Now imagine such a responsibility without as much tools as possible to exercise it. And even today, in our society, you might hear things like, we ni mwanaume wa aina gani? Hauna pesa. Mwanaume ni kuhustle. Mwanaume ni effort. These things are still ongoing. That responsibility, that burden is still on the man. But then, we are thinking of taking tools away from him that our elders, that our traditionals had put on them to help them so that they can meet their responsibility. Just to mentioning that. I'm still going on. For those who are disagreeing, don't worry, I'm still going on. The sons and the daughters went to court. The sons and the daughters of Ibrahim, right? They went to court. And got me thinking, right? We have a colonial legal system right now. It's not ours. It was brought here. And then we have a traditional legal system that was back in the day, right? These guys went to the Environment and Land Court in Nyeri. The case was presided over by Justice Lucy Waithaka, somebody who does not come from the area. And she used section 29 of the law of succession to make her judgment, right? Yes, the colonial system but the traditional system. I'll come to that. There is discontent from within. When it comes, these guys have taken their court to case. They're under now a colonial legal system, okay, brought by the colonialists, right? And then, but there's something peculiar. There's discontent from within. 2 of Mary's sons disagreed with her, right? One of the sons who disagreed was outside the marriage to Ibrahim. They say that when the father died in 1994 and he was 84, he left the family in harmony. But the family was now in disharmony because of Mary, because of the mother. Isn't that a sad thing, right? And it really got me thinking. I want to go to another era. What did the kids propose? They proposed, right, that the deceased, that there should be an equal distribution of the 3 properties that I had mentioned. Between the first house, that's the house of Ruth, and the second house, that's the house of Mary. And that Mary, they don't leave her to, let's say, to the dogs, right? But they give her life interest. Some cash to sustain herself throughout her life, right? And they reminded the court that the deceased Ibrahim, he never locked out the stepsisters from tilling their father's land. Remember in the Kipsigi's case, the father actually gave land to the daughter to stay there. And in this case, Ibrahim actually allowed the stepsisters of these 2 sons, right, to till the land. Ibrahim allowed his daughters, who are the who are the stepsisters of these guys, to till the land, these 2 sons who are disagreeing with their mother. So anyway, just to continue, I hope that I'm not losing you. I might be losing myself a bit, but I don't think so. So what does all these things tell us? What do they tell us? Was a court case necessary, right? Because even Mary's sons disagree with what Mary is doing. Her sons, even the son who is not the son of Ibrahim, she got him outside of, from another person, right? He is disagreeing with Mary. The daughters, of course, they are agreeing with the two sons who are disagreeing. So there's kind of like a consensus. But there's only one person who seems to be bringing issues. So I believe that a court case was not necessary. Because everybody, most of the people had a willing heart. But one person was bringing a bit of problems. And they were being hard-hearted. And this brings me to the issue that I want to discuss. Children versus parents, right? What do you do when you have toxic parents? Because even one of the judges, I think in the 2013 case, with this case, he said that Mary was the one bringing acrimony. What do you do when you have toxic parents? There is one guy in October 2016, right? His name is Anthony Karaoke Maitha McKnight. He was 32 years old in 2016. Now he's 35. He actually filed a case at the High Court seeking orders to force his parents to apologize to him. He lost the case in the High Court, but then he moved to the Court of Appeal. What happened between this guy and his parents such that he would sue them? He would demand an apology for them. What did they do to him? Karaoke, this guy, he says that he wants nothing to do with his biological parents. He actually says he doubts if they are his parents. And he's asking for a court order for them to perform a DNA so that he can determine whether they are actually his parents. What do you do when you have a toxic parent? What do you do when you have a parent who will not listen? What do you do when you have a parent who's bringing turmoil where peace could have been had? Where brothers and sisters, even step brothers and sisters, can sit down and talk and solve an issue. What do you do? And it's your parent. Do you take them to court like Anthony Karaoke did? So these guys went to court, right? The court sided with the daughters. Was it a wise decision? The court relied on Section 29 of the Law of Succession. So we have to check that law to determine if it was a wise move. And this is how the law defines a dependent. Somebody who's worthy of inheriting land. The wife or the former wife and the children of the deceased, whether the deceased died maintaining them or died not maintaining them. Those are the dependents. And by this definition, because it says children of the deceased, is that it does not say sons of the deceased. By this definition, the judge, Lucy Waithaka, and then the previous judge, right, they gave the correct ruling that these women, they should have inherited that land, and the brothers, Mary should not have impeded their inheritance or tried to disinherit them. There are a bit of differences between the colonial legal system and our old ways, how you used to do. Back in the day, people used to talk. And there was an opportunity for healing wounds. There was an opportunity for determining who was messing around, right? Because what happened is that in this case, it seems that one person was the problem. And it's a system of talking, back and forth. Perhaps you can heal her wounds. Perhaps you can talk to her out of the acrimony that she's bringing into the family. And perhaps there can be a communal healing as well through talking. Under this system, the legal system, the laws, it's just law and nothing else. After the law, what happens? Because these guys will go home together. What does the community learn from the law? Was there an opportunity to speak on this issue, to debate about this issue, or did just somebody come and decide? So I think that's a bit of danger. And I think that we should encourage more like an old system, especially when it comes to family issues, as opposed to this new system. In an old system, there is participation. That people actually talk about an issue, they air it out, they give their opinions, and they do it from the ground. They do not do it from parliament, where we have slay queens, where we have thieves and the sons of thieves debating on issues. No, in this case, we'll have people on the ground debating issues and giving their views as worthy members of our society. And by the time a decision is made, the entire community feels that decision, and it feels it from their hearts. And that's how we used to do it back in the day. But in this case, there's a judge appointed by somebody from Nairobi, and that judge was brought to them to decide for them. Similar to how Rome used to send magistrates to decide on laws for the conquered. It did not come from within. And perhaps that's one of the reasons why people resist it. Because they didn't have an opportunity to talk about it. They didn't have an opportunity to give their say, to listen to the other side, to being coerced, not coerced, but persuaded into accepting a certain kind of view. The new system is not working. This colonial system. It is too expensive. Perhaps Mary and the others could have afforded this kind of thing, because their father seems to be have been, a great thinker, Ibrahim. Right? He was also in detention some time back. So he seems to somebody who has been enlightened, who can plan, who can do whatever. But what about those who cannot do it? They actually need systems on the ground, not somebody from Nairobi. They cannot afford an expensive system, hiring lawyers, going to court, printing documents, and doing all of those things. What if it's just an acre or a quarter of an acre? This system is full of corruption. When people are on the ground, you're talking to somebody who lives next to you, and another person is talking about somebody. There is that feeling. And betraying that somebody is very hard. Because you'd feel their pain. Because you saw their struggle. And you'd also have a bit of history behind them. Like what Mary did, I don't know, in 1980, whatever. And then now you can have that kind of bring it forward. And it's a communal decision. It's not a decision from Nairobi. By laws of people who disappear after every 5 years. Right? And then it's out of reach of the people. By the time you start telling people, Section 29 of the law of succession says this. So this is the decision. They can't even understand that. Those arguments that were used to develop that law, do they have an understanding of those arguments? By the time they start going to town, let's say if it's Kericho or if it's Nairobi, they need to be tilling their land. They need something on the ground. We need always. So there is these groups, the role of Maendeleo ya Wanaume, role of Maendeleo ya Wanawake, FIDA. Yes, I do not like those groups. I think I've made it clear. I believe that those groups are just there to eat. Like the recent case where they were talking about this young lady who was accusing DK kwenye bit about rape. I don't believe that there's actually a case for rape in that, but I think FIDA needs to push that because now they're in the limelight. Yeah. But when there's actual cases where they need to push, they don't push, right? Anyway. So anyway, even Maendeleo ya Wanaume, all those groups, I believe that they're not whatever. The world is changing. Women are now complaining that men are absent. They're not taking care of their families. Remember, men were to be given an inheritance so that because the buck stops with them when it comes to taking care of their families. But now they're absent. Women are now complaining that men cannot make decisions anymore, that they have to make decisions on their behalf. Remember, men were given inheritance because the buck stops with them. They were the decision maker. They were the ones to give direction. But now they can't do that. Okay, some of them can't do that. Women are now catering to the needs of men. They are paying rent. They are paying fees. They are buying food in the house. What was the purpose of giving men inheritance? So that they can have a head start to taking care of their families, not so that they can bowl. That was the wisdom of our ancestors. So if things are changing, then the laws of inheritance, they have to change as well. Because the entire basis of it was taking care of the family. But now men have started abdicating their responsibility. So inheritance should go to the person who is taking care of the family, or needs a family to take care of, or needs wealth to take care of a family that somebody abandoned. Men cannot eat their cake and have it. Changing roles would require changing customs to accommodate those changing roles. So if women are taking care more care of the family, then they need more support. They need more backup. They need a stepping stone. And that could be inheritance. And it should be inheritance. Changing circumstances as well. Back in the day, we relied on our physical nature. Going out to raid. Fighting thieves with your bare hands, with your sword, with your whatever, right? But things have changed. Right now you go to the office. Okay, in Kenya we don't usually call the police for protection, but there are other ways of thinking of how to protect yourselves as opposed to physically doing it. So when they're changing circumstances, right, and that idea of that the man, right, that there must be a physical presence of a man, that physical strength of a man to push the family forward is no longer there. And then the man is also abdicating his responsibility. Then inheritance should go to another area, the person who's taking care of the family, because that was the entire idea in the first place, right? Men need to start focusing on in terms of direction, on how you lead your family from your mind, right? Because fighting is no longer that much, it's no longer a big deal in this society. Gaining wealth through raiding, it's no longer a big deal in this society. But your brain is the most important thing. How you give direction to your family, it's very, very important. And the person who's thinking correctly, who's thinking rightly, who's thinking for the family, not of mpango wa kando, that's the person who needs to control the wealth of the family. And that's the person who needs support also from where she comes from. Because this other person is not that dependable. The poor boy child is in trouble. I do know. And I'll discuss that in future another day. But today I wanted to talk about inheritance. I wanted to remind us of the wisdom of our elders. And I wanted to remind us of the role of men in our society back in the day. And how that role is failing. And how because of that failure, then there is a necessity to maintain what our ancestors thought of from the beginning, fighting for our families. And since the men have started abdicating that responsibility, then it's time we started giving women that support, that backup. Because they are now, it seems that in many cases in today's society, the buck stops with them. And even when they get into a relationship, a man is starting to, that security is lost. Because even today, in the middle of it, in the middle of a marriage, the men just go off with mpango wa kando. The Joseph Korir story, right? So many stories. That a woman cannot stay secure and say that this is my husband forever and ever. He might run away. Because again, the decision-making power is lost in the man. It needs to come back. Decide it's one wife, one woman, and it's forever. Stop playing around. Because you're playing around, then things have to change. And women need some sense of security. And inheritance can give them that security that we have denied them. So that's what I had for today. I hope that you'll watch tomorrow at 5 p.m. Thank you so much for guys who have given me topics. So much support. I will start mentioning guys in future. But I want to mention Mercy today. Thank you so much for your support. And Gladys, everybody, thank you for your support. Yes, this one was a topic. A friend of mine requested it. Lolo, right? Otherwise known as Lois. So thank you and bye-bye. Subscribe, share. Sweaters are 500. God bless.